Well, g'day and welcome back to the shed. This is part 3 of this Bush VHF 64, and if you watch part 2 you'd realise that I'm not having an easy time with it. It's got a short somewhere, it's causing loud crackling and it's causing smoke to come out of the switch mechanism. So in the last episode I pulled the switch apart and didn't find anything radically wrong with it. I'm not sure that the problem's there. But there are a few other options, and I've had quite a few very helpful comments to that video. So on that basis I'm going to go ahead and see if we can track this down. Just looking back at the schematic for a minute, I found that R12 was overheating, and that feeds basically B plus up through the IF transformers and to the plate of V2, which is the mixer oscillator. So this has a couple of switches on that switch bank. These two basically short out one or the other IF transformers depending on whether AM or FM is selected. How that would make the switch smoke I'm not really sure, but if there was an internal short in one of these perhaps. I had decided at the end of the last video to remove this AM-IF transformer and have a look at that. Moving further along the schematic though, there's this whole FM section here, and just left of this dotted line is actually in the FM tuner section. The rest of it is not. I thought I would disconnect the B plus from this section to eliminate that. It's an easy disconnection. There's this point here, 1, which is a pin on the FM tuner, so I can just take that off. And with that off, that will eliminate a whole chunk of this circuitry, so that I can safely say that that's not it, if we still have the crackling and symptoms. And that's a fairly simple thing to do. It's just a matter of lifting this wire off. It is unplugged, isn't it? Lifting this wire off here. There we go. So with that disconnected, I'll just fire it up and just see if things are any different. So switching it on, I've got the big dim bulb in place here, the 200 watt one, which provides minimal restriction, but I need to see if this thing's going to smoke or carry on, and I can't do it with a small bulb in there. It just doesn't work, so let's give it a try. Now I need to turn something on. I think I'll go, that's FM medium wave. There we go. So we should be on medium wave. And I have heaters in the valves, so that's a good sign. Yep, we still have the crackling. And yep, there's a wisp of smoke coming up from the switch. I don't want to cook it any more than I have to, so that'll do. Alright, let's see what we can do with this IF can. Just shift that out of the way. And these. Alright, now I've got this. I'm putting burn marks in the leads here. That's not good. I hate doing that. Tape that up out of the way. There. So those three all go together. Now I've got this plain wire to the other IF, which I'll just try and remove. Try this. I might have to cut that. It's not going to come off the terminal easily. Now, this grey one to the second, the other IF, which I think is the FM. No, it's not the FM one. Oh, just pulled the plastic off that. That's no good. Made a mess of it, and I'll cut that as well. I'll probably have to replace that. It's a horrible mess. Maybe put a bit of heat shrink and another wire on it. I don't know. And the only remaining one is this other terminal here with the capacitor and two other wires on it. So I'll see what I can do with them without wrecking it. Okay, that's one. That's two. And this cap. Okay. And I'll just mark the chassis where this red dot is. So red dot goes next to red dot. And this can should now be removable. And there we have it. Like everything else, I've put up a bit of a fight. It doesn't look too difficult to open. We have these two tabs here, which I think I can just bend back and pull it out of the can. Alright, let's see if I can lift one of these. That seems to work. Alright, and see if it comes out. And there we have it. And I guess I'm not seeing anything immediately alarming there. Nothing obviously shorting. I marked this pin because it's the one the B plus goes in on, and it looks fine to me. I guess we have to immediately suspect this cap, and of course this one. The wax isn't melted on the cap or anything, which doesn't suggest that it's been shorting or anything. There's a wax plug in this screw hole here. I'll just remove that. I was hoping to see something. I've measured all the windings and they all seem correct. This is a slightly weird IF transformer in that it has a tapping on both the primary and the secondary. And I'm not 100% clear on the function of that. The capacitor is across the whole of the coil and there's a tapping not very far into it. So the total resistance across the primary is 17 ohms. There's 12 ohms one side of the tapping and 5 the other side. Pretty much the same on the secondary. 17 ohms, 3.5 on the primary on one side of the tapping and 12.5 on the other side. That may even be my meter error. So it all seems to be okay. I can't really check these capacitors here because without taking them out of circuit, and I'm not yet happy to do that. I can't get a reading on them with the meter with them in circuit. With 17 ohms across them, you're not going to get a decent reading. So what can I do to establish whether this is the fault or not? Okay, so here is the IF that I have removed. It's completely out of circuit now. Now it got its B plus via R12, down here blocked by C36 from going to ground. Through here, that switch being open, it will go through the coil up to here, that switch being closed. We're talking about AM reception here, to the plate of the mixer oscillator, the ECH81. Now with this out of circuit, nothing's going anywhere. This FM coil will be floating at, well, the ECH81 won't be getting any plate voltage at all. Now if I connect this to the plate of the EF89, the first EF89, and pull that valve out, I should be getting the plate of the ECH81 fed through this IF, through much the same thing. This doesn't run through a resistor, strangely enough. It has the whole B plus on it, through here, up here, and onto the plate of the ECH81, and we should get a signal through here. Now that will tell me whether this is the problem or not, because if it works like this without crackling, then I know I've got the problem here. If it still crackles, my money's on this one. And I do remember that when I was first checking for roughly where the problem was, I was pulling valves, and I pulled the ECH81 and nothing happened. I pulled the EF89 and the crackling stopped. So I'm almost thinking that the problem is in this IF, not that one. If it is in an IF, if it isn't the switch, if it isn't 100 other things. But you've got to start somewhere. So let's do this. We'll see how it goes. So I've identified the plate wire from the mixer oscillator, and that just comes out on here. So I'm just going to tack a bit of wire onto it. I might have to put a little loop on this just to make it stick. I probably don't need this clip on here now. I'll just take that off. There we go. Yep, that will do. And the plate of the EF89 I've marked with this clip lead, so I'll just tack the other end of this onto that. Now, which pin was that? That was the blue wire, wasn't it? Pin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'll just double check that. I shouldn't have taken the clip off it. Yes, pin 7. So I'll just tack this on there. There we go. Now the rest of these wires basically lead to switching. I'm not sure if I need to hook these two up. This goes from the FM switch to, I think this ends up, yep, this ends up at R12 and will feed the FM section. I may as well have that alive, so I'll just hook those two up together. So I think everything else is clear. I think these wires are for switching across the coils, so I'll leave them alone for the moment. So here we go, we'll see if it goes bang. I've put in a 40 watt globe in the dim bulb and I'm plugging it in. I think this is a 40 watt globe. The globes have all got their markings missing off them. Anyway, we'll see what happens. Pretty bright, but dimming off. And no smoke yet. Oh, we got smoke coming out of there. And this time the smoke came out of these contacts here. In fact, I actually saw sparks and whatever come out of there. Not sparks, but glowing hotness. Not very good. I'm beginning to think the problem is these switch contacts, that perhaps the material behind them has become conductive. There is something very strange going on here. I'm just going to try that again briefly and see what happens. Yep. Oh, you can see sparks everywhere there. Okay, what does that prove? Well, it proves that the IF transformer was not producing the sparks, and that things are shorting all over the place in that switch. Well, I suppose I'll put it back in. We still have a problem with it removed, and we're still getting arcing across the switch, and I'm thinking more and more that the problem is with the switch. I had sparks and flames from the number 6 S6, but there was also smoke and sparks coming from S4, which is the medium wave switch. It seems to be just everywhere. I'm really running out of options here, but I'll put this IF can back in at least to have it original, and I'll try disconnecting the second IF, see what happens, but gee, I'm starting to run out of hope here. Okay, so I've soldered that IF coil back in here. At this point I might just fire it up and see if we've got the same problem. Okay, we're on dim bulb, turning it on, and we'll see, probably not whether we get smoke, but how much. Nothing yet, surprisingly. Nothing's caught fire. The dim bulb's brightening up, so we might get something any minute. Yep, we're getting smoke from a different spot now. Where is it coming from? Coming from switch 5 this time. I wish it'd make up its bloody mind. Yeah, it is coming from the switch itself. Looks like the material around that contact, and I can't see anything wrong with the contact. Okay, looking at the second IF now, and rather than pull the whole thing out, I've just desoldered the B+ wires from it. So I'll just put the power on, see what happens now. So plugging it in yet again. Dim bulb is on. Let's see where the smoke comes out this time. Still waiting for the smoke. Come on, where are you going to come out now? Well, this has been sitting here for a few minutes now with no sign of smoke. So that's with the second IF can disconnected from the B+. So let's investigate this a little bit further. I'll turn it off for now, and perhaps look at taking that can out and having a look at it and see if there's anything going on inside. So I've removed the second IF can, and after pulling it out I just noticed this wire here. This must be the tail of one of the old capacitors I cut out, and it is just about touching the can there. This is the connection that the B plus went onto. I don't suppose that could actually be my problem. It couldn't be something so simple, surely. I'll still open the can up and check for problems inside. I wonder if that could be it. So I've taken it out of its can. This one is very similar to the other IF, but this one is oily and sticky inside, whereas the other one was dry, sort of wax. So a little bit pops up there when you disturb the screws, but that's alright. But this is all sticky, and that pin looks to have been hot because of the wax has melted off it down here. I'm just going to check continuity of the windings on this and remove that, put it back, and just see if I'm lucky. Best chance I've had so far. So I've soldered this second IF transformer back in. I don't know what else I can do. I'm just going to try it out and see what happens. Well, with the IF transformer back in, there's nothing for it but to just check. I'll put it on dim bulb and see what happens, and I suppose see where the smoke comes out. I'm not all that hopeful, really. It's a long shot that it was that piece of wire. Globe's dimming off. Coming up, looking for smoke. No smoke yet. Yep, we have smoke. Smoke coming from switch 5. Okay, we should have smoke coming out here sometime. Here we go. So you can see the smoke is coming from this little crimp in here where the terminal is, or the contact is crimped through the backing material, and that is definitely not touching anything else. So I guess I have to come to the conclusion that this switch material has become conductive. Now, a number of people have told me about this, that these radios are prone to it, and I am afraid that that is apparently what we're dealing with. So it's the next weekend now, and I've been thinking about this quite a lot. I don't think there's a lot I can do with these switches. There are various options. There are always options. One that I considered, that was suggested in one of the comments, was to mount micro switches on the back of this, operated by these slider switches that move in and out. That would be fairly easy to get them to move a micro switch. I could probably mount 2, maybe 3 on this, and just use them to switch all the switches with any voltage on them. I think these will be okay for lower voltage switching, such as audio and whatever. Another option is perhaps if I can get new switch pieces or an entire new switch. Someone even suggested might be able to 3D print new switch wafers for this. That would be a bit of a nightmare because all of these contacts are pressed through the phenolic board, and to do that I would have to remove these very, very carefully because I think they would be quite fragile. desolder it all, press these contacts through the new phenolic and put it back together. That would take a very long time, apart from being very tedious. So what I'm going to do is put it back in its cabinet and perhaps move on to the new project while I consider what I'm going to do with this. If I could get another switch set up, that would be awesome, but of course any switch I get is likely to be from a scrap chassis, which has probably been scrapped for exactly the same reason as this. So probably I'm going to go with the micro switch option. If I can't mount enough micro switches on one of these, I could, I suppose, use relays. That opens up another whole can of worms though, about where you derive the power supply from the relay. I'm probably thinking the 6.3 volt heater voltage. I'm not sure what drain they would cause on that. I can reduce that by removing the dial lamps and replacing them with LEDs. That will probably reduce it a little bit, but I don't know if that would even be an issue. I'd have to see what kind of drain a relay contact would make. The other issue with that, of course, is noise. You don't want the wiring going outside of this fairly well shielded switch bank, although the high voltage sections, I think, will probably be less susceptible to picking up noise. We'll just have to see. There's a whole bunch of options to juggle here, and I've come this far with this. I'm not going to throw it away, but I do need some time to sit and consider and work out what's the best way to approach this. I do have another project waiting in the other shed that I've been wanting to get onto. I'll just give you a quick preview of that. And this is it. It's an old HMV console. It looks pretty rough, but in fact the veneer underneath that peeling finish is quite salvageable. It has no dial glass in it, but I have got another dial glass for it. The speaker looks good, so this will be a cabinet restoration apart from everything else. This dial mechanism seems to be seized. I can't make that move at all. Oh, it is starting to move a little bit. So I'll just give you a quick look in the back of it, and it seems to all be there. And the speaker looks to be in good condition. It looks like someone's strapped up the filter caps to the speaker field coil, which I suppose is an easy option. Looks like there's two electrolytics tied on there, so that's probably replaced the electrolytics up here. So I'm going to put it back together. I've already put the dial plate back on and put it back in its cabinet for safekeeping. And the other reason I'm doing this now is that I'm going to go on a holiday for about a month. I'll be away for most of August, so I may post some video of that while I'm away if I get a chance. I won't have my video editor with me though, so it'll be pretty rough and ready. But when I come back at the end of August, if I haven't had a brainwave with this, I'll get on with the HMV. Otherwise I'll get back to this and see if we can fit up some micro switches or something to this, because I really want to make this thing work. Well, this is not the way I wanted this video to end. I was hoping to have the radio working, obviously, but that's not going to happen that quickly. I will get it fixed, I'm confident, in the end, but I'm going to have to come up with a solution to this switch problem first. And we are heading off on a holiday for about 4 weeks, driving up to Broome and back. So I'm clearly not going to get anything more done to it before we leave. So when we get back, I will either get back into this or I'll do the HMV first and then get back onto it. In any case, thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this debacle, and we'll catch you in the shed next time. Bye for now.